I was not raised by soft women. I'm learning how to be soft. I was not raised by relaxed women. Worry is something I recognize well. I've always had room for it in my life. I was raised by strong women. Women who walked this world as though they were men, hard and tough. Women who sharpened their soft sides into sharp edges that would poke and probe and stab anyone as they walked this earth, making room for themselves. I was raised by women who carried the world on their shoulders, their bags always heavy, their brows always creased. I was not raised by soft women. They did not have that luxury. I was raised by women with harsh tongues and loud mouths, women who weren't afraid to shout in the middle of the street and pick a fight. Even with someone twice their size, even if they knew they'd lose that fight, they'd always fight. I was raised by women with hard lives.
Hello there, everybody. My name is Roberta Bobbie, and this is another episode of Heartfelt with Bobbie. And today, I know Alicia, I'm excited, but today I'm even more excited. I told you guys I only invite people that I truly, truly admire and I want to be like. So today I have a poet, one of the best poets in Africa right now. Her name is Scar, the poet. And I'm going to let her introduce herself a bit. But today I want us to discuss, just to get to know her a little bit better. And in our conversations, we're going to talk about womanhood, it being Women's Month especially, about womanhood, about romance, about poetry, art, and just about women and being girls and all that. And, of course, to get to know her better. So, karibu sana, Scar.
Thank you. Asante.
Thank you so much for coming.
It's my pleasure, honestly.
How are you feeling today?
I'm feeling excited and a little bit apprehensive, but, you know.
Apprehensive, how come?
I think it's just when you're sharing yourself, there's always a little bit of apprehension.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Do you feel this every time you're about to go in for performance?
Oh, no. You see, when I'm performing, it's totally different. Yes, I'm sharing myself, but the stage feels like my home. The stage feels like the place where no one can touch me. I am invisible on the stage. It's a safe space. So when I'm going on stage, I'm not really apprehensive in the way I am right now. Maybe the small jitters and the nervousness of performance, but not in the emotional sense of it.
Scar, the first time I saw you, it was on Instagram. TikTok or Instagram? I think TikTok. Then I went to look for you on Instagram because I had to know who is this girl and what is she about.
Okay.
And the first poem I saw, you were talking about your mom having the privilege of, you know, how she moved out of home when she was 15 and she was able to buy you time to get to 24 so that you can start your life.
Yeah.
And I love that poem. I think that's my favorite of all the ones that you've ever done.
Okay.
Is it that one? I have two favorites. Okay. But that poem is what got me stuck to you, and ever since I've been stalking you. not in a creepy way.
We love a stalking, honestly. We love a stalking.
So when I attended the event at the Baraza Lab and I saw that you were the headliner, you can imagine my excitement.
Aww.
I was almost screaming. I don't know if you saw the eye contact I was giving you. It was just, this is my moment. This is me and you looking at me.
I came to see you.
That's how I felt.
Okay.
And that's why I jumped on booking you for this interview immediately. And you told me, I was actually ready to host you the next day, but you told me, no, we have to plan so that, you know, maybe next week.
Yeah.
And I love the confidence you have even when it comes to stand up for yourself.
Okay.
Because that statement, it kind of put me in check. It was like, I know I'm excited to see you, but you kind of, okay, hold up. You have excitement, but I'm still a person who has to plan myself around. And I guess my question is, have you always been this kind of person that is able to stand up for themselves, able to speak out for themselves, able to, you know, say things as they are and how you mean them?
I think I would say yes. but also not to the degree that I am right now. I think like everything, it's just a muscle that you grow over time. So I grew up, well, now
Yeah, tell me a little bit. That's where the question was going. Tell me a little bit about your childhood.
So I think, I don't know, but with time and self-reflection, I've started attributing it to the fact that I went to boarding school really early. And so I went to boarding school, I think, in end of class 1 or beginning of class 2. Ooh. So I was a child, and the next person in boarding school, I think, was in class 4 or class 5 at the time. And I was in a crowd of these big people who would honestly trample on you if you didn't speak up for yourself. But also, they did embrace me and they loved me in some ways, you know. So I think that independence just started from then. It started from figuring out, okay, if I don't speak out my mind and if I don't figure out what I want to do or how I want to be treated, then I'm going to end up being mistreated. Because you know the thing about boarding schools, there's always bullying, and I think being a child, really, I was a target. But I didn't experience it directly. Here's the thing I tell people. I remember my school mom, like the first few days, my parents were compensating, of course. So I had a lot of snacks and things to go with to school. But I remember the school mom I got assigned, she started using the snacks without my permission. And she was like in class 7 or 8 at the time. And I remember feeling, no, this is not right, but also not knowing how to express that. But within a few months, I'd moved my bed and I went and started sleeping under someone who was way kinder, who I will always remember. Her name was Ngendo. And she became my adopted school mom, and I forgot about the other one. So I guess it's those small lessons. And then with time, I refined that ability. You know, I refined the ability to say, no, this does not honor me. No, this does not speak to me right now. Or I no longer want to pursue this, to stand up for myself. And I think, honestly, even as you admire it, still there are times I do not stand up for myself in the way I wish I had. So I'm still growing the muscle.
Yeah. So what kind of kid were you in the home? I want to know your family situation, because ultimately we are going to talk about your mom and your shosho.
Okay.
They are a big part of your life.
They are, truly.
Yeah. So I want to get to know,
what kind of child was I?
Yes.
Sometimes I think I was a fleeting child. I was a child who was there without being there.
How do you mean?
I'm the type of person who can open up to you without opening up to you, you know?
You can say a lot.
I can say a lot and say nothing at the same time. And yeah, so even in my childhood, I think I was there without being there. And it's one of the things I'm trying to practice more intentionally now. As the poem, The Goal, you had it, says, like, I'm trying to be more in the moment and to be a fuller person here. And I think I was there without being there because we were a nomadic family. So we moved a lot. And I never thought that anything was constant. And so I developed this ability to immerse myself fully in something, but not attach myself to it. And it's like, so that the moment that thing goes, I'm also gone.
That's like a superpower.
Yeah, it is. But also it comes with fleetingness, as I said. Because looking back, I can barely remember my childhood friends. And at that time, they were truly my best friends. And I immersed myself in the relationships fully. But it's like the moment we were packing and going, I was like, okay, next chapter, you know. So I was a fleeting child. And at home also, I was not a very, I don't want to say I was not a vocal child. Because I've always been vocal. You couldn't provoke me and not know. I was vocal in terms of standing up for myself, but I was not vocal in terms of being my authentic self in those spaces. And I think that's why my poetry explores a lot of authenticity. I think it's a reclamation of everything that I didn't get to experience as a child because of the situations around me. So I think I just had to adopt a really tough face really early and grow up soon. And there's a lot of goodness that came with it: independence, confidence, a knowing of self. Because, you know, children are influenced a lot by the people around them. But when the people around you are fleeting, you find who you are early, and you decide, or rather you decide, this is who I want to be. And from an early age, you know, I can decide who I want to be. And so it came with a lot of, you know, like life, balance equations. There's the things you wish had not come off of it, but there are things you look back and you're like, oh my God, I'm so grateful that this opportunity led me to explore this part of myself.
Do you feel like it made you grow up sooner than
Yes, it
you
did.
should have?
I don't know about should have, but I know that it did. Yeah, it definitely made me grow up sooner. Not really sooner than I should have, but
Because
it made
class-
me grow up early.
Because class 1 is
It's really
crazy.
early.
You're kind of being forced into independence, and you know, to be the person who's able to make their
They
own
had to make their own decisions to decide who they want to be their friends, and yeah, exactly.
So were you in boarding? Did you want to go? Was it intentional for you, or because of the situation of your parents being nomadic?
I think it was a little bit of all of them. In the beginning, when I went, I didn't think of it as a choice I could make. You know, I was raised at the time still when parents set the word exactly. So your mom just comes to you and tells you, okay, you're going to boarding school tomorrow. We've had conversations since with her, and I've come to understand more the viewpoint that she was saying it from, and to give her grace, as in the poem that I recite about her. And yeah, I think also then it makes me look at it at a different lens. She was a single mother, very young as well, and she'd left me with her mom to take care of me now, but her mother was also another single woman at the time, and so she had her own worries, and I could not, according to my mom at least, I could not get the quality of care that she wanted for me. She could not trust that there would be someone taking care of me at all times, and so she figured boarding is a safe space. I'm working, I'm trying to fund your life and mine as well. My mother, so I used to stay with my grandmother during the holidays, and my mother would come and stay with us now, on and off. And so she was like, as much as your grandmother is willing to take care of you, and I am letting her take care of you, there's also, of course, you can't let her carry the whole burden, and she has her own life. She has to go out every day and look for this and that. So that's why she took me to boarding school. I see it from her mind, and I understand it. That said, I do say I will not take my children, or rather my sisters, to boarding school until, if it were up to me, they'd even do high school in like a secondary school day, like Strathmore or something. But I'm not sure there are very many good choices available for that. But yeah.
What impact do you think that growing up situation has on you? What's significant? What's the most significant impact you feel like? Because you say you won't allow your sisters or your kids.
I would not. I would not. I think it allowed me to be very independent. As we said, it grew me in a very delicious, proportionate ways that we can talk about forever. But I think a child needs care and attention from the people around them more than they need independence. And I think eventually the muscles in my brain that grew at that age would have grown. So, you know, yeah.
It is what it is.
Yeah, it is what it is.
You have a poem about your mom and your shosho. I think now that's my favorite one. The one where you talk about being raised by strong women. Women who, you know, would sit in the changa dens and they would shout at men and they would speak their mind and they would say what they feel. Even just talking about it is making me... Tell me a little bit about that. About that poem.
That poem... I'm trying to remember when I wrote it. You see, the thing about my poetry is, as much as I just started sharing it, I've been writing it for a long, long time.
When did you start, actually?
I started writing poetry in primary school, actually. But by then, I did not know it was poetry. I just knew that I would write these things and people would love reading them. And now in high school is when I began to put a structure to it and think, oh, this is
kumbe ni
poetry.
fasihi.
Hey, I was like, okay, kumbe I'm a poet. Yeah,
Yeah.
But even then, I did not begin to identify as a poet, but I could see that my writing was poetry. And so I started writing maybe around the age of 10, 11. Yeah.
And I said, tell me a little bit about you were telling me about the poem. You started writing it a long time ago.
So, no, I was saying I'm trying to remember when I wrote it so that I could maybe pinpoint to the feelings.
You had,
to the feelings I had at that time. I think it was inspired by another poet, and she's Spanish, and she also wrote about the women in her life. And I was like, the title was actually I was not raised by soft women, or not the title, but like a line that repeated a lot. And I decided, you know what, I'm gonna write about now my version of the women in my life. This is stories that the things I talk about in the poem are stories that I've collected over time. I did not get to witness all of that. By the time I was born, my grandmother was a Christian woman who loved education. But my mother got to experience that version of her. And over time, my mother has told me those stories. And now I have put them together to understand them more. Then again, my poetry is always in seeking to understand myself, the world, and the people around me. And so in that poem, I've put together the stories that I've been told of them and who I have learned them to be, and tried to show them in the fullness of their womanhood, that this were people who are like this. My grandmother at some point was a changa and owner. Like, that woman can probably still brew changa and busa from scratch, but right now she's every Sunday going woman, and she's a person who's had to live a hard life, but not allowed that her progeny would live the same life. And the same for my mother. I think the poem, it talks, it might not be very evident, but it talks about their lives. There's like one line of my shosho, one line of my mother, one line of maybe one of the aunts or the people who have really affected my life. And so it's just a collection of the people around me. My mother was not the changasala, but my grandmother was. But my mother is definitely the woman shouting in the middle of the street, So it's like, now I can see them in their wholeness, and I bring the story together.
So these women, they've shown up this strong. I imagine for them to be in that situation, they have a wit about them.
They do.
Yeah. Were they soft at home? Was the softness for the kids? Did it ever show up, or were they just hard consistently?
They were hard. They were hard, but also they were soft. It's not, the thing is, tunasemanga je ni when you do a craft and then you have to carry the craft at home. It just came with the territory. So, of course, they were hard. And the hashtags, they were not left on the road. They came with them home. But also, they allowed me to see a softness in them that I know they did not allow outside. So, I cannot say that they suddenly became these soft creatures when they came into the house, but I could see more of their softness. And I think now, even as my grandmother ages and my mother matures, I can see the softness even more, as they also see that it's like when they start to see you're making, for lack of a better word, you're making something of yourself, then they start to let go and say, it's like, okay, now we can trust in the work that we did and we can relax a little. So the softness has begun to show even more now. And the more I see the softness now, the more I understand the hardness.
I love, oh my God. You have such a beautiful, way with words, even the way you speak. I mean, did you study this? We all studied
we all studied English.
But you know what I mean. Like, Is this something you specifically studied for, or have you just always been this
Um,
artistic in your cadence, in your eloquence, in the way you speak even? Because it's not just in the way you perform. I'm seeing it even now, the way
I'm speaking.
you're answering questions.
I think maybe it comes from a lot of retrospect. I think the questions you ask me are things I have pondered over again and again, like I said, in my seeking to understand the world and the people around me. So maybe that's why I come off as articulate. But then again, I do have a gift for language, and maybe that's just God, you know.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah.
So take me through your process of, writing. You said some pieces take years even
Yeah.
before you're able to share. So take me through your process of writing up to sharing, up to the performance.
Okay.
How does that go?
I don't always Now, my writing has changed the more I've been invited to perform at places, but my writing used to come from my emotional. Like, if I'm going through something, if I see something and it triggers me, but also it comes from my intellect, because at any particular point, there are always words floating in my head. And it's almost like I'm not the one writing. It's like they come to me, for lack of a better word. I could just be walking around, or I'm in a matatu, and then I wrote the goal in a matatu because I was singing.
Okay, girl.
I was singing along to songs in the matatu, and then I was like, you know what? So I became conscious of the fact that I was singing out loud in a matatu, something that sometimes people find bothersome. And in the process of observing myself, I was like, you know what, this might be bothersome to people, but truly I do not want to change this part of me. I do not want to be the person who does not sing along to a song that moves them in a matatu. And so I started to write. I was like, the goal is to sing along to songs in the matatu. The goal is to laugh out loud. And that poem had also been writing itself for quite a while, because one of my friends started a business called Mizizi.ke, where she's selling Moratina, and also as she sells Moratina, it's almost a reclamation of the Kikuyu culture. And I love culture a lot as well. So we were partnering with her on that, and the conversations we were having also had been going and coming in my head. So now the line, the goal is to make Moratina my drink of choice, comes in. So it was a poem that I wrote over several days. But the several days I was writing, it was only in my head. And then that moment in the matatu sparked it, and I was like, suddenly all the lines were flowing.
I love that.
Yeah.
So what preparation do you take when it comes to performing?
Oh my God, so much. I don't think people fully appreciate. First and foremost, like I said, a lot of my poetry, I'm emotionally tied and linked to it. So there's another poem I wrote about 25th June of last year, 2024, about the protests. And I wrote that poem and I shared it on TikTok, but that poem had and carried so much grief, because it was grief for everything we had set out to achieve with the protest, and what little we felt we had achieved. It was like, it was just a lot. And so I put away that poem after sharing it, and I thought it was okay. And then I got invited to perform at an Ukombozi forum, and I started practicing, and I put in a lot of hours behind practicing, just saying the words out loud and trying to make sure that I, for lack of a better word, exhaust the emotions out of myself, so that when I'm performing, I can be a performer and not a person saying this deep, wounding things that have wounded and hurt and grieved me. So I was trying to work out the emotions of it. Because you see, if I'm still emotional when I'm performing, then I will not be thinking about how do I make this performance good. So it's like the more I say those words, the more I try to work out all the emotions that I'm feeling, and to make them more not that I'm working them out to remove them, but just to make them more, more packaged. I don't know how else to say it. It's like more packaged, more controlled. Exactly, more controlled. Because yes, at the end of the day, I do want the audience to see these emotions, but I don't want them to overwhelm me to the point where I'm not able to perform. And still, the first time I performed that poem, I made it through the performance, but after I cried. Like literally in that room as the program was going on, I sat down and I cried. And I think especially the person who came after me was also singing a song for the people who had lost their lives during the protest. And it's just like I tried to remove myself out of the mood, but it would not happen. And I really cried. And one of the things I said to myself during that time was, when I wrote this poem, I had forgotten how much grief I had when I wrote this poem. And so while I was practicing it, I was lying to myself that this poem is an empowering poem. You know, it's a poem that's speaking about the protest and what we aim to achieve. And it's a poem that's giving homage to all the people we lost. And so I thought I would sound so empowering on stage. And I think I did, but also I just sounded like a heartbroken Gen Z who had lost her comrades in a fight for a better country. And so I think the practice process takes a lot, because it sometimes I have to put away the poem. There's this poem about Congo, and I tell people when I was researching for that poem, I would have to literally, there's also a lot of research that goes into my work, because I have to have the realistic data behind it. I have to know the historical times. I have to know what happened, or what, I can't just write a poem about corruption without knowing what's the situation on the ground. So there's a lot of research. And while I was researching for the poem about Congo, my heart was so grieved. It was, I literally had to take breaks. And I wrote that poem, I think, over 3 months. Although I already knew the story that I wanted to tell, because there was just, it took too much of me. And I would research, and then I would put it down, and I would say, hey, I'll come back to it later. And I would research, and I would write some lines, and then eventually I did write the whole poem. But like, you should see me when I'm writing. Sometimes I cry. Like,
invite me over some mizizi, muratina.
You know, sometimes I really cry. And I think maybe that's why my poetry can do that thing you said, where it can capture your emotions, because it captures mine. I try to sub feelings in almost like in a bottle. So yeah, the practice, it's a lot. It's managing my emotions mostly, but it's also thinking about how do I relay this to the audience in a way that touches them without also breaking me. It's knowing how to get the facts. It's also sometimes researching on my audience, what kind of jokes, I don't do a lot of jokes, but what kind of humor will appeal to them? How do I make sure that a reference or a line doesn't just pass over them? How do I make sure that the things I want to hit a spot?
I love that.
Yeah.
So hey, hata majibu zako pia ni deep. We're just talking.
I'm just a deep person. I can't help it.
It feels good. It feels good. The way you perform, you move your body sensually, and you know, capture. It's almost as if you're releasing the emotions that you are feeling, just the way you explained into the audience.
Yeah.
Does that just take you over, or is it something you sat and said, you know what? Itakuwa kipindi yangu. Nikipanda hapo stage. Dako anafanya hii mambo. I know how to perform. So how does that come about? Because it does add to the performance.
Yeah.
It makes it 10 million times better.
Yeah. Sometimes I do. They're like actions which are intentional. There are things I intentionally put, which I feel add. But the general sensuality and the body movements come naturally. One of the other things I love is dancing. Like, I truly love dancing. And there's this line I like to say, that dance always and joy will find you. And I believe that one of the things I believe about healing is that trauma is stored in our body. And so the more you move your body, the more you like release those things. And maybe it just shows up in my poetry as I'm speaking about these deep things. I allow them to also come out of me. But most of it, it's not intentional. It's intentional. It's just not precedented. What do we call it when you? It's not premeditated. Exactly. It's intentional, yes, but it's not premeditated. I don't know what the exact movements I will do, but I know that I will let the words flow through me, and the words now determine the movements, which is why practice comes back in again. As long as I truly immerse myself in the poem, it's like my whole heart, my whole soul, my mind has been living around these words. They've become a life of their own in my head and in my spirit. And so that's what I'm trying to relay through the body movements.
Speaking with you, even as you sit before me, the feeling I'm getting is as if, how do I explain? It's like it's spirit.
Oh.
It's like it's spirit communicating, but through you.
Oh.
It's like you're just a vessel. It's like you're sharing, because I feel what you're saying and I'm just listening. I'm not even touching you. I'm just listening.
Yeah.
So it's I keep repeating this. I keep regurgitating this so that I can assure you that what you're intending to do, you are
thank you.
doing it, and
thank
more,
you.
even in just your speech. So let's go a little bit into sensuality. You're a very, very diverse kind of girl. You talk about a lot of things.
Yes, I do.
Your poems are about a lot of things. Like we've just dived a little bit into activism. So sensuality. You have some poems about romance. And the one that stood out to me the most was one that was on lesbianism. Was it not on lesbianism, but like you were expressing love
for another female?
Exactly. And I related to this because even in a very basic way, on a very platonic level, these are things us women do for each other.
Yes, truly.
We love each other in this way. You said she cooks for you, she there was examples you gave in the poem. I don't want to botch it. But tell me a little bit about this poem. I'm sure you've got questions. Even in the comment section, it was, Scar, are you a lesbian? So tell us about this poem. What were you thinking when you were writing it? What is it about? And, I almost said, and are you a lesbian? But that's...
There's a little bit,
yeah.
I wrote that poem about a woman I loved. So it's a poem about a real person, and I did send it to them before I ever performed it.
Oh, to be loved
by
a
woman. I know. I think. Now I'm struggling to find out which poem, because I think I understand the poem you're talking about, because there's another one that I also performed at Slam called Dear Straight People. So it's also a poem that explores queer themes, but as a conversation to the straight community. The poem you're talking about, I think it's the one where I say us wasn't right.
Yes, that's the one.
I wrote this after my relationship with the said woman ended, and I was really just trying to make peace with the ending of that relationship. And as I was making peace with it, I realized that the last stretch of that relationship had been very painful, as things often are when they're ending and you're not ready to let them go. But that period of making peace with it made me reflect. I had been with this woman for 2 years. So
that's a long time.
Yeah, that's a long time. I really did love her. So at that time, I began to look at the beginning, of the relationship. I wanted a poem that, even as I said goodbye to that relationship, would capture everything that relationship was. And so I told myself, don't focus on the last stretch. Don't make what was a very beautiful relationship, don't judge it by the last chapter of the book, And so it was a poem I wrote about a relationship with a woman I loved.
I love the way you consistently, I don't know if you notice you do it, but you consistently do not focus on the things that make you sad, and all your answers are towards the, I went through that, but like, look at how it came out. Yeah, I was sad, but like, this is how I ended up. Is that your general view and
Of
perspective
life?
of life towards life?
Actually, I'm not. At least I don't describe myself as a very positive person. It comes out that way, but I like to say that I'm more of a. I take the bad as well as I do the good. If I write a poem about being angry, I will be very angry. And if I write a poem about being sad, I will be very sad. And if I write a poem about grief, I will be grieved. But I think I've come to understand that everything is full circle. That, like you said, there's a lot of spirituality in my poetry. And with that, I've come to understand that everything is full circle. So, yes, there's the sadness, but there's the joy. And so I allow myself to feel the joy as much as I feel the sadness. I never look at a situation and say it was only this, because it was this and this and this and that. And I try to let it be all it was, you know? Like even when you come back to the poem about hard women, they were hard, and they had hashtags, and that's just the truth. But there are also the women who did their damned best to make sure that I did not have that life. And it's just the situation as it is. And so I think if you focus on either, then you don't see the full picture. Not to say that I see the full picture, but I try. So even in my relationship, I saw the beginning, but I saw the end. Because there are also poems I've even performed actually about her that the main focus was on that end. I don't know if you've had this poem, but I performed it at this I think 2024 slam, and I was saying, but I'm not surprised because you treat love like a cage, and everyone who runs away, who loves you, keeps running after you as they try to show you that it's safe. And that poem is just a rant. You know, it's a rant saying, I tried to love you and you would not let me. So I think I feel all my feelings. And I've learned that feelings are just information. And I take them as that. And I'm like, okay, I'm angry, but what is this anger telling me right now? I'm sad, but what is this sadness telling me? And I allow myself to immerse myself in emotions, whichever they may be, whether they're I don't like to call them bad and good. Sometimes I use low vibration and high vibration, you know, whether it's like the emotions that make me vibrate on a very low energy, or it's the emotions that give me this highness. I'm like, every one of them serves a purpose. And so I allow them to teach me what they are here to teach me, yeah?
Scar, you're very emotionally intelligent. Who taught you how to...
Boarding school, bro! Well, boarding school is not for the weak. It is not for the weak. Yeah, but also life experiences. I have been lucky. I'm a child of community. The people have loved me over my life for no apparent reason. Like I look back and I'm like, I don't know. I was just a child walking down the street, and this person decided they would love me. Like on Sunday, I had a conversation with a man called Kamoji. He is approaching his 90s, and he's now one of my friends. And he just loves me, and he loves to pour his wisdom onto me. I met him when I was performing at an event in UN that was commemorating JM Karaoke. And so he was a friend of JM Karaoke's. Wow. And I think how honored am I to be in the presence of such wisdom, you know? And this man truly loves me, and he has conversations with me, and he almost treats me as his equal, although I know he has vast experience that I will never. So I think I've just been loved and gifted by very wise people around me, and I've gleaned off of them, and here we are.
Yeah. So Kwanzaa, where does the name Scar come from? Sijui hata mbona si Kwanzaa na hiyo swali.
I know everybody asks me that. Why Scar? So I tell people it's not an interesting a story as you think. My full name is Priska. And my friends started calling me Scar in university. It was just a nickname. But I embraced it for my poetry because of the symbolism behind it. I like to say that a scar is evidence that once there was a wound and now it has healed, you know? And my poetry tries to speak a lot about healing. Even when I'm speaking, whatever I'm speaking about, there's always a healing around it. And the saying that these experiences are only meant to mold you if you would allow them, and if you would detach yourself from the pain and from all the emotions that come with it, you would almost transform. And so I thought Scar, as much as it was my nickname, was a very befitting stage name for the type of poetry that I wrote.
That's really smart. Yani, where we go to smart areas.
No, see, mathematics and chemistry will tell you different. But yeah.
So, hapo tu bado kwa sensuality na womanhood. So I want to talk a little bit about girlhood, about women, about, your area. What does being a woman mean for you? It comes out a lot in even the way you carry yourself, the way you speak, the way you show up. And you're a very, I don't want to use the word strong, but you're strong. You know your stuff. You speak up for yourself. You're a confident person. This is not typical of what people are used to as, when you're describing a woman, they like you timid and demure and soft. And I mean, you are all these things.
I am.
Yeah.
But yeah.
But you're also all these other things. So
exactly.
just like in
everything
your poem,
is full circle.
Yeah.
You cannot be only one thing at a time.
So how, okay, let me staki kujinsert. Lakini, mimi, najicompare, nikikuza maswali najicompare kiasi because it looks easy. It looks easy to stand up for yourself.
Yes.
It looks like and you said you're also learning consistently. But I think you're on a higher level than me, so I'm here
thank
to
you.
learn.
I'll take that as a compliment.
I'm here to learn. I've realized that it doesn't matter how confident, rich, exposed, eloquent, all these things that people attribute to success. It doesn't matter how much you've achieved. But iyo kujiongelelea na kujismamia, it's a whole different ball game.
It is.
You could be the richest person in the room, even as a woman, but when it comes to speak up for yourself, it brings challenges.
Yeah.
I don't know if we've been conditioned like that socially.
I think we have.
Anytime we're about to speak, you're nagging. You're too much.
You're emotional.
Don't be too much. So it's now where have I forgotten my question? Where was I going with this? Oh, womanhood. This womanhood that is encompassing all these things. So what does womanhood mean for you and girlhood? There's someone who asked you a question at the event about girlhood, and I'd like for you to just explain what that looks like. What does it look like? What have women done for you? What have they been in your life, and why is it even important?
Well, first, when you ask me what does girlhood mean for me, girlhood almost means allowing myself the whimsicals of life. Allowing myself, they say overpriced coffee, Uber rides when you don't really need an Uber ride. Girlhood is just giving in to the fleetingness of life and everything while also being able to feel it deeply, because I think girls really do that. Like, you can just, girlhood is going out with your friends on Saturday evening and hyping each other up all the time and all the things that they say about girlhood, branches but I want to say it in a way that it doesn't seem just so light, because it's also allowing me to not take myself so seriously, to show up in very provocative dresses or provocative dressings, and then the next day show up as this person, masculine presenting. Girlhood is allowing myself to just, you know that thing we say for I'm just a girl. Like I'm just a girl. I'm just a girl. Mimi sinipe pressure. Maisha sijui mniambie sijui what. Girlhood is truly just allowing myself to be novel, to be free-spirited, to do all those whimsical things that don't necessarily make sense and are not logical in the world as we view it, you know. And womanhood for me is community, it is strength, it is, quite frankly, almost divinity. And I struggle with that because, of course, there's also the other part of women are just women. And there's the part of, like, we're just, at the end of the day, truly, we're just women. And when we keep being told we're special, then more is expected of us, right? So
it's a double.
Yeah, exactly. But at the same time, I can't not help think that we're special because we're not special because we're inherently special. We're special because, given the circumstances of the world, this is how we have dealt with it. But if the circumstances were not that, then we would have the luxury of just being women, you know. But now to be a woman in this world is to constantly fight for your place, constantly overwork while being constantly given less credit, and still find the strength somehow to keep doing that work, you know. So it's all of that.
This thing of women being special. I love how you've explained it. How does it affect your career and your poetry, like on a day-to-day life? Because you mentioned it's almost as if opportunity has equal, lakini you're expected to
be more,
and then you still get
less, exactly,
and you still have to. So how does that?
And you still have to figure out. I think it does, because even when you look at the scene in Kenya and you try to look at the women, I don't like to call them women poets but anyway.
For the sake of
this conversation. When you look at the women poets and you look at the male poets, and I think it's not just in the poetry community, you know, the double treatment and the glass ceiling applies all across the board. So as artists, we would have thought we would escape it because we'd like to think that artists are enlightened and less worldly, but that, unfortunately, that's not the truth. And I think it affects, because even when you think about poetry, like what names come to your mind, you know? Yeah, maybe you can just tell me what names come to your mind.
Scar.
Well, apart from me now, because
but I know what
exactly. When you think about poetry or a poetry event, there's just certain people that you would expect to see. And I feel even the women who eventually make it into the mouths of people like myself then have a harder time retaining that attention, because like you said, more is expected of you for less. So for the same attention, that
it's like you have to be a super
you have to be a Amazonian queen, bana, you know. And so there's that. There's the fact that anywhere in the world, women put in a lot of work. And also, I think there's also a little bit of, is it disagreement, or like people not viewing the world in the same way in terms of men and women. And so what for you is hard work and what for you is really like committing to your work may not be what the men think is. Maybe the men say you have, you know, the way they're like, so they're like, you have to do this and do this and do this for us to see you're really pushing your poetry. But for a woman, maybe those are not the approaches that I want. And also maybe that is not what I want my poetry to achieve. You understand? And so the systems are set up for the way men do things, not for the way women do things. And so their softness and their emotional intelligence and their what do corporates call it? Soft power is often seen as you're not doing enough. But in truth, we do not have the same goal, and so we cannot achieve it the same way. One of the things I say is, I'm not the poet you call when you want to leave people laughing. I'm truly not. And that also limits the types of events I can get to perform at, right? Because you probably won't call me for just, I don't know, a comedy show where people want to laugh and you want me to be one of the poets performing. Unless I was doing it as an open mic and you're like, well, you know, it's
What?
not
I
really
thought
costing
good
us. But as a featured artist, maybe probably you'd be like, no, she's not fitting the vibe or something like that. And so it's a lot of things, and I think those are the ways I've seen the most. And also there's the fact that when, like you said, it's not easy for a woman to constantly stand up for yourself, because sometimes you just get fucking exhausted. It's like I already made the art, I already prepared it, I already presented it, but now I have to come and fight everyone just to. So sometimes I think women get tired. And I think we ask them to be bold and to be iron women, and we're like, no, don't get tired. Get in there, make your way, make to the front. But it is tiring to always be making your way to the front, because there's also that feeling of, no matter what I do, in order to, like, if I conquer this level, in order to get to the next level, I will still have to go through that process of pigaing watu out of the way and making room for themselves. There's just no direct path for me. I will always have obstacles. And so on one hand, there's, please, baby girl, do it. Break the way. And as you break the way, many more will come after you. But also there's I understand how exhausting it is to constantly be a way breaker, to constantly be fighting yourself to get into rooms so that you can also allow others to get into those rooms. So it's just, yeah.
So how do you forge the way for yourself? How are you different from other people?
I think truly I'm not. I don't align with the principle that the women who make it are like different from, or they have this tenacity that other women don't. Because I know these female poets, and they're amazing people. They're people whose work I love. They're people whose love I admire. It's just, I think, truly, I don't think I'm different. And I wouldn't know what to say really pinpointed me or made it.
It's because you're brilliant.
But that is to suggest they're not. And they are. They're just as brilliant. I admire their work. Like, there's a poet and also a friend of mine called Nyash. She really, my God, when I miss any of her shows, I feel like FOMO hits me so hard, because she is such a brilliant poet. And she's also done so many... She's done a lot of mileage, because she was the Slam Queen a year ahead. And she's done a lot of mileage in order for me to be where I am as well, because there's so many things she did that now have almost become automatic for every other woman Slam Queen to do. But you see, not a lot of people have that knowledge, but maybe because I'm an integrate part of the community, then I know that these women have forged for me. I know that I would not be here if it wasn't for Kwikare's poem ya Ameiba Pampas, Maziwa na Unga. Like, I know. So I know that these women are equally brilliant. I know that these women are also equally fighting all the time. And the thing with fighting is you don't always win the battles. And I think the problem is people see the battles I've won and think I'm doing so much better. But you don't see the battles I've lost. I've wanted to perform at so many events that I never got to. And it wasn't because I wasn't awesome or because I wasn't brilliant or I wasn't a good performer. I don't know what it was, which is why I said I don't feel like the poetry community embraces women the way it does men. And I think for me, the one thing that has really propelled me was me using social media. Because it was like, the way there's gatekeeping in communities. I was like, I'm just going to go around the gates and jump over the fence. I'm just gonna go around the gate and jump over the fence. And so I started presenting my poetry directly to the people, and I did not wait to be in this poetic spaces in order to present them. And I think even in the process, a lot of people who have loved my work online have now translated to become people who go to other who come to poetry events and go to other poetry events. So I think maybe again, some of it is just luck and the universe conspiring for you. Because I like to say I started getting so much attention from the poetry community when my poems went viral. But I had been sharing my poetry, right? And the people in the poetry community knew my poetry and they knew how good of a performer I was, you know? So it's like the moment the world embraced me, then the poetry community. I'm not saying that they hadn't embraced me, but I feel like after that, now there was an intentionality towards the way they approached and worked with me.
While you were speaking, you mentioned divinity. What does that mean? What does being divine?
I mean,
Divine feminine. What does that look like? We just hear these words being
all
thrown
over.
around.
I
What
know.
does that mean for you especially?
For me, I'm off. We'll go into my spiritual beliefs here, but
It's okay.
I am
That's
off.
why we're here.
Yeah, I am of the belief that we are creators. I don't want to say we are gods because we are creators, right? And so creating is a divine thing, right? And so I'm of the belief that we are creators. We are creators of our own reality. I believe that from within as without. And so when I speak about the divine feminine, I speak about you mastering yourself as a woman. You master your soft parts, you master your strong parts, you master the hard parts because that's life. And some of us have had to get hard parts. And you learn yourself as the spiritual. And when you know yourself as the spiritual, then it's like energy and vibration will come out of you and you create what you want. You create a community that you want. You create the life that you want for yourself. You set intentionality towards how you want to live, not even for the world, but for yourself, and you pursue that life. And in that way, you create that beautiful, life that feeds you and feeds other people in the process as well. Because the thing is, as human beings, we go searching for a thing for ourselves, but when we find it for everyone.
It's true. And that's why I think it's so important. Even the way you decided to use your platform to get more traction or to share yourself out there. Sometimes you're thinking you just want likes, but you're changing
in the world.
Someone's life. I love that. Scar, what do you hope to achieve with your art? Why are you doing what you're doing? What does it mean to you? Why does it matter at all?
I think the simplest answer for me would be I hope to heal the world a little. I'm a very firm believer that it's only this crazy and after thing that can change the world that eventually do. And in one of my very crazy moments, I was like, God, just let me help everyone. Let me heal everyone a little across the world. Let me... In one of my poetry, I say... Can I read it?
Please. Actually, I wanted to ask if you could please kindly perform something for us.
All right, people of the internet, I hope that you are enjoying this episode so far. I broke the episode just to tell you something that is very, very interesting. In 2024, a lot of people were saying that I am broke, Jagero. I do not have a job. That what is interesting is that when they were telling me this in 2024, I was already working on a book for the last 3 years. And that book was about the hustles and the jobs that you can get online. Now, what you need to know about me, Jagero, is that I have always traveling. I'm always doing this crazy, nice stuff. But I've never been employed since I left college. And I'm not saying that because I hate employment. I didn't get employment, But I have always worked. I've always earned money. I have worked for Americans. I've worked for Europeans. I've worked for Kenyan. I've worked for anybody literally on the face of the earth. And these are jobs that I've always gotten online, on LinkedIn, on other ways. So I've been very busy. In 2024, I wrote a book called The Digital Goldmine, 18 side hustles that you can take advantage of online. And a lot of people bought that book. Almost sometimes even 500 people in a month buying that book. And people have been saying, are there more jobs? Yes, there are more jobs. So in 2024, they are no longer 18 side hustles, but they are 25 side hustles because I have added other books. So in 2025, you cannot say, Jagero, I don't have a job. Jagero, I am broke because I have put it before you. The book is not expensive. It is 1,000 Kenya shillings. Or if you are asking about the price in other parts of the world, it is just $10. Okay? So in the description below, I have put the link that takes you to where you can learn more about the book. And I've also left a link where you can buy the book. So thank you very much. And let's go back to programming.
Yeah, the poem goes, and I think it's the poem that says, this is what I intend to do with my poetry. Ask me what I am. I am the child born to feel all the pain my ancestors ignored. A priestess, a shaman, born to usher a new age, walk my generation into freedom. So I must learn to carry their pain. I must learn to walk into despair and pull them out into the light. This body must learn to twist, break, and bend. I am not of my own, oh, I am a vessel, a medium. And I stand in the middle of the light and darkness, saying, I will not let this threshold close till I pull them to the other side. I am the child of the new dawn, born in the darkness of 3 a.m. to usher you to the sunrise of dawn. O magician is who I am, daughter, witch, priest of my name. See how I carry pain. See how my voice holds space for it. Oh, I am the mad woman, walking into destitution, singing, out of this joy shall come. Out of this joy shall come. I am the siren, singing songs of freedom, my father's blood, my mother's womb I set free. I am the broken marching to freedom. I am the light, and the darkness shall not overcome me. So, I want to heal the world a little.
Look, the animals are drawn to you.
Stop! No, that's too much.
But there's an energy about you, honestly. So what are some of the questions you wish people asked you? What is something you wish someone would ask you that you've never been asked before? Something you're always waiting to talk about and nobody hits that spot.
I truly don't have a thing. But I have a thing that's been on my mind, so maybe we can talk about that.
Sure.
A friend of mine came and we were talking about our fathers, and my father passed when I was in class 4. But even before then, he wasn't very constant in my life. And so she was asking me, babe, but how come you don't have daddy issues? And I was like, do I really not have daddy issues? So I've been reflecting upon it. And I think everyone asks me about the women, and no one asks about the men. And I think maybe
Guilty.
it's also...
Can I say why? Can I tell you why?
Yes,
I didn't ask?
please.
Okay, because I see, first of all, I believe in this thing for, even as an interviewer, you have to read the room.
Yeah, you have to.
I feel like you can't ambush someone with questions, and that's not something I had brought into your vicinity. But then again, you're very vocal about the women in your life, which means they have brought a bigger impact in your life. If it was your dad, I would have known. You would have been talking about him. So it could be sensitive. I wouldn't know. Is he still in the picture? Is he alive? I don't want to that thing for not told, don't ask.
Ah, okay.
Not invited, don't go.
Don't go.
Not, so it's
if the floor has not been opened, then do not open it.
I'm just trying to be careful, but I'm glad you brought it up yourself. Let's talk about it.
Yeah, I think I brought it up because it's been on my mind since it's almost been a week or 2 since she said that, and it's been on my mind. Since my friend said it like 2 weeks ago, and I've been thinking about it, and I'm like, is it true that I do not have daddy issues, or is it that they just manifest in a way that's not the way people have coined? And as I was thinking about it, I was of course in the process of writing a poem, and I was thinking, no, it's not true that I don't have daddy issues. They just don't manifest in the same way. And I was like, perhaps it manifests in the way I don't really know what to do with men. Often I use them as creatures to amuse me. Which is not a very good thing, but I am very aware of the things that are not good in me. So so I was like, and in the same, I am attracted to women as well as I am attracted to men. But when I look over the relationships I've had with men, I find a guardness around me, because no matter how open or willing or trusting they are, there's this, it's like there's me in the moment, and then there's a part of me from my brain always watching the man to be like, okay, so this is what men are, or this is who you are. And I think it's because maybe I've always experienced men from afar growing up. And so as a grown up, now that I'm experiencing men at a more closer level, it's like, I do not know what to do with this creature. I know what to do with
I
the
feed
women.
it?
Do I feed it? What do I do with it? It's like, I know what to do with the women in my life because they've always been there. I've had enough time to learn them, but I never really learned the men. And now the men in my adulthood are the ones teaching me about men, you know. And I'm like, okay, I like that. No, I don't like that. I want this. No, I want that. And lately I think maybe it's because I've been thinking about it more, but also lately I've been finding myself attracted to older men. And you know, up to like, I think 6 months ago, I was one of those people for leave 30-year-old men alone. Just leave them alone, okay? Leave them alone. Not that I had experienced it, but in my mind I was like, this is a man more mature, more in tune with himself, and there's a level of, unfortunately, manipulation that those relationships between 30-year-olds and 20-year-olds tend to have. And so when I find myself attracted to a 30-year-old man, it sets me back, and I'm like, oh, okay, so this is me now, what's going on? And I was trying to think about it, and I was like, perhaps I am seeking that elusive feeling that everyone says a man gives a woman, that protection, that care, that nurture. And I was like, perhaps it's also I'm leaning more into the softer sides of me. I'm a very tough person. I'm a very tough person, and in the spaces I am soft is with an intentionality. But if you just find me huko mtaa, I share bana all the time, any day. And so lately I've been showing up with a more intentionality of allowing the world to see me as softer person. It's showing up now even in the way I dress, because like at the event I wore a dress and a lot of people were so shocked, and they're like, oh my god, I've never seen you in a dress.
Oh, that's not normal, you?
I know, it's not. It's not. I think it is just
No,
not
I mean like day to day.
no, it's definitely not day to day me at all. But it's normal me only in the spaces I feel safe and comfortable. So my friends who were there have probably seen me like that before. But the general public and even the poetry community itself, because you know we tend to have a lot of the same videographers and the same MCs and all of that. So they're like, "Ooh, what's going on today?" And they're like, "You look really nice." I'm like, "Yes, thank you." So it's like in the spaces that I've felt safe in my community, with my friends, with my people, I've showed up like this. And of course, the 1 or 2 or 3 times I wanted to provoke the entire world. But now I'm trying to show up in the world like that, like in the whole universe, not in just a space where I feel my softness is protected, you know. And I was thinking maybe it's because as I show up more in the world as this softer version of myself that I am allowing the world to see, then I'm also craving something that would protect that energy without me needing to go back into my toughness. And there's this thing we're always told that the men protect the women to have to be in the soft feminine energy so that they can be in the masculine energy. I don't know how true it is because again I've not experienced it, but I think maybe that's why I'm finding myself drawn to them more and more. That offer, that allure of protection, that allure of you can be soft and I will brave the world for you as you walk in your softness. And it's just something that I'm exploring because one, I know it's not always true. And second, I think whatever, like I said, I think you create like your life. And so I think whatever I'm called to experience, eventually I experience it, and it's just a matter of time. So I'm now in that season of, okay, let's see.
That's really nice. I'm tempted to ask you how old you are.
Please, you can. I'm not sensible. Is it sensible or sensitive? I'm not. Yeah, I'm 25 and I'll be turning 26 in 3 months, I think. So yes.
You're way too smart for your age. In a good way. In a good way. Because
okay.
I mean, like, when I was 25, what was I thinking? What I was thinking. But listening to you speak, there's no way at your age I would have had all that. Even just the understanding to understand what you're saying. Because the things you're saying will easily go over many people's heads. Unless they're being as intentional
as I am. Well, here's the thing. I understand why you have that perception of 25-year-olds. But I struggle with that a lot because, again, I exist in community. And these are conversations I'm constantly having with the women around me. And so when I meet other people and they tell me, no, but you speak so well for your age, or like with the man I told you I had dinner, he was like, but what is it about you? People from your generation don't behave like this and they don't have conversations like this. And I find it so hard to reconcile with that view of the world, with that view that the world has of us, because within my community I'm like,
that's normal
because here's the thing, I'm not a unicorn. Okay, if there's me, there's other hundreds of me, and especially because I experience it, I see it. You could easily have the conversation you're having with me with any of my friends. Easily. Like, I give you 10 friends and you can have this perhaps it will not take all the same directions, but they will be able to meet you at the same depth that I have met you. And so maybe I would ask, are we not that, or are you just not allowing us to be that? At the same time, are you just exposing yourself to the young people who are not that? Because again, young people are multifaceted. I'm aware that the thoughts I have as a 25-year-old are not the thoughts that someone else has as a 25-year-old. But it's just to say, I think, don't feed us into that stereotype, There's so much wisdom I gain constantly from the women around me and the 2, 3, 4 men. So, I think also, sometimes people show up in the depth that you allow them to, and you'd be surprised. We think the same of older people.
People are holding back.
Yeah, people are holding back, because if you only engage me in a conversation about smokies, I will also and then that's the thing about my generation. We're not really people who set out to prove themselves all the time. So if you come and you think I am ABC, trust, I will fit right into that ABC and you will walk away never have knowing to the Zs, And the thing I wanted to tell you also is you'd be surprised, but we also think the same. Well, I don't really, but I know that we also think the same of older people. And we think that you do not allow yourself vulnerability. We think that you conform too much to society. We think that you do a lot of things without intentionality. Basically, I think the same thing you think of us, we think of you. Because we look at how our parents raised us and we're like, there was no intentionality there. We look about maybe how older siblings, the millennials, are moving around in life, and I'm like, I'm sure he doesn't like that, so I don't know why he's doing it. Why is he showing up as this fake person? Why is he pleasing our parents? So we have almost the same view of you. We don't think you deep people. We don't think you people who are honest as well.
Okay, Scar.
So
hii conversation inaweza endelea
forever.
But I would humbly request, I have one request.
Okay.
Please, could you please perform for us one poem?
Okay. I feel I'll ask you because you invited me. Is there a specific poem you'd like
yes.
me to perform? Yes.
Okay, now I'm spoiled for choice.
Yes, you are. But still.
I have 3 favorites. But I in honor of, Women's Month, do the one that you performed at the Bazaar Media Lab, the one about women. No. Do the one about strong women.
Okay.
Yeah, that one.
Okay. Okay, how is this performance happening?
Before you start, do you want to stand up? Even if you want to stand up, it's okay.
I don't know. You tell me.
Kwanza,
Right.
how do you master everything? How do you remember everything? And how do you write and then you read over and over and over and over?
There's that. I practice a lot, but you'd be surprised. I don't remember everything all the time. I just sometimes I forget some of my lines, but I remind myself that this is my story. So even if I've forgotten some of the lines, I can still tell the story without those
Si
2-3
hata
lines.
hatuwezi jua.
Mwezi jua.
Yeah.
Hapo na mimi practice. Hamjui ni poem yangu. So now you see, here's the thing. Because I've mastered so many poems, once I'm done with the performance, I tend to like,
Unachana nayo.
naachana nayo and I let go. So I'm not sure I will be able to perform all of it.
Okay, just pali tu mpaka utafika. Ama ile yenye uko 100% comfortable with.
Okay. I think because this is a very cool setting, I will just read as I look into the camera. Is that all right?
Yeah, that's okay.
Okay. I was not raised by soft women. I'm learning how to be soft. I was not raised by relaxed women. Worry is something I recognize well. I've always had room for it in my life. I was raised by strong women. Women who walked this world as though they were men, hard and tough. Women who sharpened their soft sides into sharp edges that would poke and probe and stab anyone as they walked this earth, making room for themselves. I was raised by women who carried the world on their shoulders, their bags always heavy, their brows always creased. I was not raised by soft women. They did not have that luxury. I was raised by women with harsh tongues and loud mouths, women who weren't afraid to shout in the middle of the street and pick a fight. Even with someone twice their size, even if they knew they'd lose that fight, they'd always fight. I was raised by women with hard lives, women who entered dingy bars and chang'ad dance and confidence. Women who owned dingy bars and knew how to make chang'a from scratch, cuss at the police, smile at the men groping them. I was raised by women with hard lines on their faces. Women who never had husbands. Women without fathers. Can you see it in the way I walk? I was raised in a home where women changed the bulbs, fetched the firewood, chased the bag, got that bread. Is it evident in the way I talk? I was never taught how to be small, to speak in a soprano. I was raised by the daughters of Mumbi. You couldn't be hard in that house unless you were loud. I wasn't raised by soft women. I was raised by business women who knew when to bribe the chief or flirt with him. Spot a cop in civilian clothing, close the bar at a moment's notice. I was raised by women who knew how to nurse bullet wounds. Women whose husbands were armed robbers, whose brothers were in prison. Women with hard lives and calloused hands. Smiles that never reach their eyes, worry lines that have become permanent in their faces. I am the legacy of these women. I am the work of their hands, the product of their toil and labor, the only part of themselves they're allowed to be soft. A baby girl raised by gangsters, visionaries. I'm the first person in my family to graduate university. This is the work of their hands. This is the work of their hands. The people who raised me have had such a different life from me. This is their pride. This is their legacy. They gave me what no one gave them. They gave me softness. And it shows in the way I feel. Thank you. Asante. Na shuku munanichocha tu juu pia mimi ni guest. We all were, honestly. I think that's the thing about the poem. It honors the untold stories of so many people. Because, again, when we were growing up, our mothers did not always have the luxury of corporate work as most of us do. So they had to figure it out. And if your mother was not the person selling chang'a, she was probably working at the market shouting, you know? And I think that's the beauty. It tells the stories we don't tell about the women who raised us.
Is there anything else you'd like to say to us? Or what would you like to say to a poet who's watching this, a woman who's watching this, and they want to be like you, just like me?
Oh, thank you.
What would you say? Just something.
I think I reiterate the same thing. First and foremost, if it was not in your ability to do, it would not be in your heart to do. Whenever you feel called to do something, it is yours for the taking, truly. And the other thing I would tell them from my experience, the world will embrace you. And sure, there'll be the ones who don't, but like ata hautakuwa na time ya kufigure out the people who are not embracing you because of just how deeply the world will embrace you. Your art is valid. Your art is needed. Actually, your art is needed, and the people in rooms waiting for your art. And the moment you start to share it, I think you will realize just how much of a need there is for it. So create, share, and give us a part of yourself. Let us all become one. Yeah.
Thank you so much for coming, Scar.
It was my pleasure.
I truly hope you enjoyed speaking with me as I have with you.
I did. One of the things I was thinking about when I was coming, I said, the way we are all crazy people, low-key, and we've all imagined ourselves in an interview and all the things we would say.
Yeah,
I got to live that dream today. So I got to be at an interview and say all the things I thought I would say.
I'm happy. I'm happy. Thank you so much for making the time to come and, share a little part of, a big part of you, who you are. That was my intention, to just get to know you a little bit better, so that as we are consuming your art, we understand where it's coming from or why you're even making it.
Okay.
So guys, thank you so much for sitting with us throughout the hour. I truly, truly have appreciated this conversation. Today, I walk away more confident. I walk away trusting myself more, loving myself more, not just words, but actually truly putting in the work. And throughout, the theme of this conversation has been intentionality. I see it in the way you speak, the way you walk, the way you express yourself. That's something really admirable. And I hope you guys have learned just as much as I have. This has been Heartfelt with Bobbie. And guys, I want to remind you that on the 16th of April, we'll be having our Dream by DWJ event at the iHub, Jahazi building on James Gishuru Road. Please come. Everyone who's ever been a guest here will be there. Scar, will you be coming?
If I'm invited, then I'm coming.
I will send a formal invite.
Okay.
Please come join us. The tickets go for 2,500. In the description, I will add how to purchase the ticket for yourself. But I think I will end the conversation there. Maybe Scar, tell us, where can we find you on social media in case we want to buy you a coffee?
Okay. You can find me on TikTok at Scar Poetry, and TikTokers, you have my heart. I think you were the first community I formed, so now Apenda, there's just a special part for you. And on Instagram at Scar Poetry, and I'm recently on YouTube at Scar and her poetry. Yeah.
So follow Scar and follow me as well, Roberta Bobbie, everywhere on social media, and read my blog, Jameni, loveandorgasms.com. But other than that, thank you. I will see you guys next time. Bye.
Thanks.